the next session will be Dani Cahill, solution specialist for Cahill Consulting, and he'll be talking about the AI tools. I'm not gonna steal your thunder. I'll let you explain the rest of it. Over to you, Dani.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, look, like everyone, I guess, I started playing with those AI tools. So ChatGPT and hopefully Copilot pretty soon and so forth, right? So yeah, started playing with those tools. I specialize mostly in kind of needs analysis, requirements gathering, requirements validation. So really, I thought let's explore and share a bit my knowledge with everyone, and hopefully I can learn from your feedback as well. So I guess yeah, we'll go through the agenda. What I would recommend you do as well during the session is feel free to just ask questions as we go. You don't have to raise your hand, just ask questions straight away. I'll try to respond to them. You can put yourself out of the camera. I know it's recorded, so you don't have to, of course, but if you feel like putting your camera on, absolutely feel free to it. And I'm looking forward more to have an interactive session. So I have a few slides, a few demos, but as well, let's have a discussion, let's have a conversation. I'm really keen to understand how you guys are starting to use AI tools to do anything else than build software like Copilot, anything else than that where AI can help in our consulting world. I'm really interested to kind of hear about your thoughts. So very quickly, if I start the deck, so I'll go through a few minutes of just introduction. So maybe some of you don't know who I am, so I'll quickly introduce myself. Then we'll discuss, I thought to discuss a few of the current challenges around, needs analysis, requirements validation, requirements gathering. Is often a case where, especially currently, companies have difficulties articulates what they actually need, right? So we'll discuss a few of these, and then share with you how I think AI, or how AI is actually helping me to address those challenges. Then from those, how can AI help? That's kind of a slide with a few ideas of how AI can help. I'll show you some practical use cases that I'm using already now, experimenting with some of those use cases. And again, right, keen to hear your thoughts about some of these, or if you use anything else for any other AI tools to help you in your day-to-day consulting job, please feel free to share. And then, of course, we'll cover some attention points. So any attention point, any hiccups I pick up while learning, I'll try to share with you as well. And then hopefully I'll give you some ideas of what I see the future looking like, and we can debate and have hopefully a healthy conversation around these. So quick introduction about myself. So I started working in 2007, in CRM4. It was just the migration from CRM3 to CRM4, and then kind of work in many different roles. I actually started as a developer for a year. I was writing plugins and JavaScript, and then moved to functional team lead, practice manager for a year, and then solution architect, MVP, and now I have my own company. I have a small consulting company helping clients, and yeah, I'm an MVP since 2020. Mostly, I guess my specialty is really that requirements analysis and visioning, backlog management. So everything related to really trying to understand what are the needs of the clients, and how we can make sure that by the time we deliver the project, we kind of have met the essential needs of the client and the company. So I think if you have been on the presentation from Neil before, I live on the Gold Coast, which is just south of Brisbane. Neil lives in Brisbane. I think a few of you guys on the call, Leon, I think you're in Sydney. So basically Gold Coast is somewhere just south of Brisbane. I moved here 6 years ago. I was in Sydney before, and in Belgium 7-8 years ago. What I love doing, just a quick, so I love walking, and then effectively, if I'm not in front of my PC, I would be walking for hours, and just thinking about stuff and ideas and so forth. And I picked up a few a few other hobbies here on the Gold Coast. I love doing karate, and that's actually my daughter next to me. So we're doing karate together with our sensei. And as you do karate, unfortunately, sometimes I have to wear, black glasses at my clients. It happened to me once where I had to go and I was presenting and I had to wear black glasses because I had a bit of a different look on that week. But that's what happened when you have your, you want to pursue your passions. Cool. So back to a more serious topic, right? So the current challenges that we have currently with kind of needs analysis and requirements validation, right? So often when you start a project or when you're thrown to an existing project, there is either a lack of documentation or there is too much documentation and so forth, right? So you very quickly needs to get up to speed with either the how the company works, how that industry works, and so forth. So that's one of the current challenges that I foresee or I have a lot on my current projects, right? Another challenge that we often have, related to understanding requirements and especially at the beginning when you don't know that well your stakeholders is busy stakeholders, right? You might have SMEs that have limited time to share with you their knowledge. You might have a product owner that is pretty busy or simply doesn't know everything, right? So I guess those are the current challenges that I face when really starting a project, and as well kind of a lack of industry knowledge sometimes. If you have been working in an industry for many years, it's kind of easier. But in my consulting role, and maybe that's the case for you as well, going from one project to another, we sometimes work in different industries where different processes are being used, where different actions, different system are being used in the system landscape. So is that those are kind of the challenges that I have and I had throughout my career as consultants, where it required quite a bit of time, especially at the beginning of the project, to get up to speed with the knowledge, because maybe stakeholders were busy or the industry wasn't known, or simply the documentation was overwhelming, or therefore maybe there was a lack of documentation, right? So what I have been doing with some of the AI tools, so how can AI help, right? And I'll show you some of the practical scenarios that I'm actually using AI for, right? But here is one is understanding the challenges of an industry, of how basically that industry works, right? So to give you an example, I started working with a very specific branch of a council, and that council is around event management and tourism and business development within cities, right? And effectively, the activities and the challenges described by the business owners, where I couldn't really understand like their real challenges from the few discussions I had with them, and also they were busy, of course. So I actually used ChatGPT to kind of try to understand a bit more, the challenges around the industry of my client, really trying to understand what's happening, why they needing a CRM system and so forth, right? So really trying to understand, I guess, an industry. And another use case or another scenario when I use AI is really trying to understand as well a user journey or the end-to-end process, right? So I often like to think when I start a new project is what is the high-level journey of a user kind of interacting with our system, right? Whether that's the end user or the end client, or our user using the system. I like to have an end-to-end journey, right? And I have been trying to get a bit more information from ChatGPT, for example, about user journey, right? So I have the little play button here because I actually wanted to show you something here. So effectively, it might bring one of my kind of demo, right? So here, and it's a real case scenario, and I actually ask my client if I could share some of the information, in topics and so forth, discussing with them. But effectively, here I didn't exactly know the end-to-end process, for example, for the judicial system in Australia. So when, for example, you you want to submit a claim and get, you have an argument with someone, right? Someone owes you money and doesn't pay. So, what is the end-to-end process of a plaintiff and a defendant in Australia, right? So effectively what I asked ChatGPT here is, you are working in the digital system in Australia. Can you describe the typical plaintiff and defendant journey, right? And I needed that because the client wanted to discuss an IT platform to manage the end-to-end journey for plaintiff and defendant, right? So effectively, to get up to speed with what my client wanted to discuss with me, I kind of quickly wrap up some question and ask ChatGPT to kind of help me understand, the plaintiff journey, what's happening, like what are the big stages, and give me a bit more information, right? So very quickly kind of give me that before the initial workshop that I had with my client, where I could effectively or be ready or understand a bit better the process, I guess, that we were going to discuss. So that's one use case. Another one that I use quite often is act as a person. So again, that would be the end-to-end journey. But here, for example, is asking ChatGPT again, right? If and I'll show you this one actually in a more detailed scenario. In this one is where you really ask ChatGPT to impersonate a persona. So I'm telling the AI to, you are a subject matter expert or a product owner with so many years of experience. You work in that industry, and you really try to give context to who ChatGPT is as a persona, and then you ask your questions, right? And you can go very deep into all the questions you want to ask about that person, right? And this is kind of to help me, I guess, complement the knowledge of a product owner and also the time I have with a product owner or a subject matter expert, right? Sometimes, a product owner or subject matter expert might not know everything about that industry, might not know how it's done in other company of the same industry, right? So I guess I found a bit more knowledge in AI tools about specific personas and specific challenges that those personas have. Cool. Another one is I use AI to prepare some of my boards and diagram. And for example, there is a tool called, so there's a few of those tools now popping up in the market, right? But effectively, there is one that I've been using for quite a bit already. It's called FigJam, which is the whiteboarding tool from Figma. And effectively in FigJam, you can, with a prompt, and you have you can generate here, with a prompt, you can generate a flow chart with some of the activities, right? So the example that I showed you before is, and I'll show you a bit more in details. We'll do this as a demo, and we'll generate another process. But here in this case, effectively, to support the ChatGPT conversation I had, I generated a flow chart or a process of that journey using FigJam, and FigJam created those processes for me automatically, and then I could then refine them and move them around or change to simply the text. Another one that I'm playing and experimenting with is a roadmap. So you can also ask AI tools to generate such roadmap if you provide. So you can provide the duration, you can provide the project, you can provide the feature, you can provide even the dates, and it will kind of generate a skeleton for you. And then you can start populating this, with specific client data or specific, you can add more text and so forth, right? So effectively, all this has been inputted in the prompt, all those data, and then that tool kind of generated the diagram for me. I'm really looking forward. So this is evolving so fast, right? Because I mean, those FigJam tools have been released, I think in beginning of November, so just a few weeks ago. So it's almost every week there is something new coming up. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what's happening in that space. Cool. Next one is generate a typical Epics feature and user story for a product. So again, I used ChatGPT here. I was on a project where for a specific feature, my product owner, I guess, didn't really know that well that feature. They have never really um, they have never really implemented that feature. That product owner was pretty new in her role as well. So basically, to help the product owner and to help kind of the flow going of even asking the right question, I charge GPT to kind of generate a product backlog using epics feature and user story, just for me to prepare the workshop and kind of guide the product owner on giving some ideas and examples of what could be an epic for what could be a user story for your feature, what kind of details we want to have in those user stories. So I generated here a user story list very specific to the feature that that product owner wanted to implement within that specific industry. So the language was really adapted to, I guess, that company. And just to give you again some ideas of how that might look like. So, here, for example, I started the discussion, again, prompting the AI tools, specifying kind of the persona. So I'm saying you are a product owner in specific, with 30 years of experience working in a specific industry, providing the context, and then asking ChatGPT to generate, a typical journey for a student in this case. And then asking as well, after that, I was asking ChatGPT to kind of generate epics features and user story, right? Where you can kind of get an idea of the epics, again, feature, user story, some examples that you can complement and use during your workshop with some of your stakeholders or your clients, just to validate their thinking. So you let them, how I use this, right, is that I don't drive the conversation. I let the client or the product owner driving the conversation. But I would say if they don't mention about anything about enrollment management, I would then ask, what about the enrollment management process? Where is that captured and so forth? So I just complement my knowledge to be able to ask the right question during the workshops. Cool. And the last one, yeah, I think this one I'm using a lot, Dynamics or Power Apps as a prototype environment, or any other system basically to drive demos or prototype things. And I found it very useful to have some real sample data that have the language of my client or the industry that I'm doing the project with. Simply, it's way easier for them as well to understand what I'm presenting when I'm speaking about the same language, or I'm speaking the same language, and I'm using the same kind of words that they use in that industry. Cool. Let's go to the next one. Some practical use cases. So what I wanted to show you. So indeed, the act as a persona. So this one I'm using quite a lot. So, in ChatGPT, you can say, as a persona or as subject matter expert or product owner, you can do a specific thing. So let's discuss this one. And then the other one is preparing some of the boards. I'll give you some concrete. We'll do it together. We'll do a demo of preparing some of the boards and the diagram together here live. So first, a little bit on how I structure my prompts, right? So I always kind of try to structure the prompts when I try to impersonate a persona. I try to structure my prompt using this kind of, a structure where I say you are, and then I say you are a highly experienced product owner with so many years of experience. Or I'm kind of saying who you are as a role, where you're working. I'm not naming company names. I'm trying to use only, for example, industry or kind of countries. But I'm trying to not be kind of share confidential information with ChatGPT, at least, because ChatGPT is not a private and secure chat. I will discuss some ideas about what you should be careful in a few slides, but I'm setting the context about the industry and maybe the country. I'm setting who is, for example, the company, but not, again, not naming names. What more or less, how many students they have more or less in that case, or how many clients they would have, right? Or the size more or less. So it's not, so that ChatGPT understand that it's not a company with 10 employees, but it's a company maybe with 100,000 employees and so forth. I think it's important from a context perspective. More about the initiative. So what is the company is trying to do? And more about the system, they are investigating. Most of the system they are investigating is about the Power Platform and Dynamics, but if that would be something else, I would say, and I would put it here, and then you can ask what you need, whether that's a journey, a hierarchy of requirements, or any specific questions. I guess you would then put that in your question about what you need from the AI tool. Define the output. So what kind of output you need? Do you need bullet points? Do you need, for example, a product backlog in structure in Apex feature user story? Do you need, I don't know, a JSON file? I was playing a bit with JSON files and maybe being able to generate a product backlog automatically. So you can ask all kind of different formats to AI. And one kind of nice, I'm not sure if you have heard, one nice tip as well is, before generating it, I'm asking, ask more questions before you respond, right? So in this case, for example, you can really ask ChatGPT before you respond. So I provided all this 7 points, but before you respond, you can ask me additional questions, and then I'll respond to those questions. And then ChatGPT effectively ask you additional question about those scenarios, how experienced are maybe some of your users, what kind of integration they would be using, and so forth. So you can respond to this question, and ChatGPT often provide more precise responses to your questions. Cool. Now we'll do a little bit of an experiment with FigJam and that processing board. So if I bring my board, so that's the tool I wanted to quickly show you as well, right? So effectively, if I start a new Figma board, in this case, let me go to Figma again. And then if I new design file there, and then effectively here in, the design Figma, yeah. Recently used, actually it's not there, back. Is the Fig board, there we go. Sorry. So here, effectively, what you have an AI prompting model where effectively you can ask the AI tool to generate effectively some diagrams for you, right? And this is the one I was playing and using before. So for example, generate a process flow for a student applying in a university. And then effectively, if you ask to generate, and you can kind of use any specific persona or any specific kind of industry, and then kind of FigJam or this tool will generate for you a diagram based on that specific industry and the persona. So you have a start date, you have a start of the process, then the persona will research university. Are they specific university in mind? Yes, no. And what I found useful and interesting, each time you kind of generate, can you add additional personas like the admission officer? It will kind of follow this, regenerate another chart for you. So it doesn't really update that one yet, but it's effectively regenerate another chart for you. Hopefully, I found it sometimes that it's getting stuck after I restarted. After I try, the next time it's sometimes getting stuck. Let me try to refresh that one. So that was a bit of an experiment as well in this case, a bit like Neil. Let me try again. to see. So create a process diagram for students applying to uni and include the admission officer. Let's see if that will work. In this case, process, yeah, I generated something else in this case, but you can see how the AI tool, so it's actually failed what I wanted to ask him to do. But in this case, it generated the board with application requirements, documentation. Is actually not what I wanted. So, but this is a good, actually it's a very good demo and use case of the attention point I wanted to raise with you, right? So you will see one of the slide about the attention point that I wanted to cover, but effectively, in this case, yeah, it didn't generate what I wanted, but like I would say 80% of the time, it kind of generated for me a nice process diagram that I could use and at least enhance my knowledge about a specific process and a specific industry. Cool. So let me see there. Yes. Okay, back to my presentation. If anyone has any questions, again, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask. Sorry, that's from the beginning, from current slide.
Yeah, there's no question in chats for now, Dani.
Cool. So yeah, from current slide. Yeah, cool. So another one as well that you can use about those personas. If I bring it back here, right? What I was doing as well, playing with the tool is, let's say you have that diagram. So there is another tool in that FigJam tool. It's called Jambot. And if you bring that in, it does a lot of different kind of actions based on what you need from this Jambot tool. So for example, you can ask me, give me, and then you kind of have a prompt and it will, so if I say, give me persona for a student applying to a university, and then it's trying to generate some options. So if you say people, it will give you the people involved, high school teacher, college admission consent, university professor. So basically, based on the prompt, it will give you some of the persona involved in the prompt you gave. You can ask for places, you can ask some ideas. So how I use that thing is I effectively, for that client where we're discussing the judicial journey, I actually inputted here the judicial journey. So describe kind of the high level steps of the judicial journey, and then ask Jambo to generate for me the people that were involved in that journey. And I had a few roles. So for example, what I did is I prepared my board to discuss with the client. Let's say in this example, I would say, again, generate the people. Then I had a few of those users that I could then take, and then here, and then from that board, I could then generate maybe some of the events, what would happen, and then the tool will generate some of the events, attending university open houses. So effectively what I had with this thing is I could bring it over and prepare a bit some of my boards and some of the discussion points I had with my client, right? So in this case, I could have an idea of, the high level activities that were happening and who was involved in that process, and then add additional sticky notes during the workshop, right? It was, again, I didn't use exactly that board, but I had it handy on the side just to make sure that I asked, again, the right questions, that we covered the right roles, and that, we kind of, because one of the challenges always with stakeholders is you have a meeting with them, and sometimes or quite often some information will be missed. They'll forget to tell you something. So that's a good way to kind of validating, I guess, with your stakeholders, that you haven't missed anything, that they haven't missed anything to tell you as well. So I found this way of using that tool quite useful. And again, I guess it's pretty new. It just got released, so yeah, it's pretty early stage of what it can do, and I'm really looking forward to see how this evolves and help us in our consulting career and jobs. Ooh, let's continue to the few slides I have left. Ooh, attention point. So I think exactly what the demo have shown, right, is using the tools, whether that's FigJam or ChatGPT or something, right? A lot of the answers are sometimes made up, right? So I really review everything, and almost a lot of the work that I do for the prep is kind of complementing my knowledge, and I have to throw 50% away or maybe 30% away because it's just not right. So I guess attention point, review everything that has been generated, because I kind of have the feel that the AI tool will sometimes fill the gaps when they don't really know the answer with kind of something that has nothing to do, or nothing related to the process, or nothing related to the question you're asking. So make sure to kind of review everything, use it as an input to prepare your work and your workshop, but don't rely on this completely, of course. The second one is really confidentiality. So I'm personally never sharing company names or being too specific in the questions I ask, because it's an open kind of platform we use to ask, our question and do our research. It's not secure within the tenant. It's not secure within the company kind of realm. So I'm trying to be quite careful with the information I'm even asking. And I mean, Copilot is coming. There are tools that will be hopefully available for us, where we can go and be a bit more specific with the questions we're asking, and sharing maybe some documents and so forth. When you are within the realm of a specific organization, with the realm of specific client, then you are within their network, within their tenant, and the data is within their kind of boundaries, and you can be way more specific with your questions. So I'm really looking forward to see how those kind of more secure tools can really help us. Yeah, even getting even more input and information, right, to prepare my work. And yeah, the last one, really, it requires practices, right? The more you play with it, the more, I guess, I've seen the way I ask my question, the way I refine my prompt, the way I prepare my boards, and so forth. It requires practice, right? And it's not something that if you have not really used it yet, it's not something that from the get-go you'll get straight away incredible value, especially for the type of work regarding requirements and preparing a workshop. So be a bit patient, and as you go and refine your queries and your prompt, and be a bit patient, kind of as you refine this process, you will then start getting more value, I guess, from it. Cool. And yeah, last slide, really looking at the future. And this is where, again, I would like to engage a bit with you. If you have any thoughts, any ideas, is where this is going. And it's just my kind of speculations and some of the ideas I might have, or where this is going. But I'm really keen, again, to kind of get your thoughts on it, right? So, I'm kind of foreseeing maybe AI as an additional member of the team, right? When we develop project, um, the AI could be a member of our team, can join our meetings, workshops, can suggest, advices on process issues, more like a guide, right? And really guiding us in the process, picking inconsistencies, in kind of the way we implement the project. AI maybe might be able to pick some relationship issues or biases between between people, right? Maybe the product owner and an SME, I don't know, the communication doesn't go so well, is affecting the project. Maybe there are some political issues. Maybe the AI will be able to, pick that and in a kind of in a more independent way suggest ways we could address those issues. That's one of my thinking. Propose some design ideas. We as technology expert, we are sometimes, and I see this in myself, right? We only kind of often look in the realm of the technology we're comfortable in. So the Power Platform, Dynamics 365, and kind of what is around, but because we don't feel comfortable in other areas, maybe some tools in Azure, maybe some even other products not in the Microsoft space, right? Maybe AI could then recommend, even within the ISV space, all the ISVs available, right? I don't know all of them. Maybe some design ideas could be suggested as well. Look, you're thinking about solving this problem using this in Dynamics or this in Power Apps, but maybe there is something else existing that has been done. Maybe those design ideas could be suggested, and flagging risk for the project with, again, people issues, design issues, maybe, or design risks, and so forth. Cool. I'll continue. Again, feel free to jump in and kind of complement your thoughts. Next one really is documentation, right? Thank you. I see one question in the chat, so I'll pause straight away after covering this one, right? So documentation. What I'm saying really, and maybe that could come quite soon, is documenting the current processes, right? And I mean, I have been in project where I start working with a client, and very quickly we discover that the current process doesn't exist. Everything is in the heads of people, right? And before even starting the implementation of Dynamics, we have to map the current process. So what I'm thinking is maybe AI could give us a head start, right? And what I've showed you already based on a specific industry, it kind of generated for me a simple process diagram, right? But maybe with a bit more time, you could use AI to fill a bit more information, define, the specific roles you're looking to describe and in the process, and AI will kind of describe for you an ideal process or process diagram based on the information that you have fed in. Maybe you can fit in some documents and you kind of generate a diagram or process based on the information you have kind of provided. Recommend maybe some improvements where there are some bottlenecks. The tool could recommend maybe where you can change your process to make it more efficient. Based on that, propose again solution ideas. And what we're seeing now is implementing solution ideas, even with a Copilot for building Power Apps, even if it's relatively simple for now, what you can describe. Going forward, maybe in the future, knowing all this information that have been provided to AI, maybe they can generate way more complex solutions for us, maybe entire apps based on all the information you have given them, the processes, the improvement of the processes, some of the proposed solution ideas. Maybe it can generate, an app for us that kind of have been generated based on all this information that have been kind of provided and fine-tuned. I see a human aspect a lot between here, where I think the current process, for example, being generated by AI, then it's refined by someone like a product owner or SME, refined to make it to adapt it to the company. So it's almost like a Copilot for the document generation. I would recommend improvement, but again, it's recommendation. Then you have a human coming in and kind of fine-tune those recommendations, propose solution ideas. Again, a human comes in and complement this or validate this, and finally the implementation. of maybe the bare bone application, and then 80% would be built. All the tables are built, all the forms are built, and then you have very specific developers coming in to fine tune the 20%, which are often very critical and often the more challenging to do, right? Enhancing the UI, enhancing maybe some of the more complex automation and so forth that are critical for the project, but at least you don't spend that 80, you don't spend time building all those building blocks from the very start. Maybe the AI tool would have done that for you. Cool. I'll pause for a sec because there is a question in the chat. Review everything. What's the easiest way to cross-check or validate AI generated answer is valid? Sometimes I generate made-up answer only as experimenting the suggestion. Yeah. So what is the best way to validate if it's correct, right? Is that correct, Zay? Do you want to maybe unmute yourself and thank you.
Yes. I thank Dani for the great presentation. Yeah. My question is, with regards to the some of the ChatGPT, because I've experienced, for example, of course, sometimes you ask solution ideas or some configuration with most of the time related to D3 swap.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT, they reply very nicely, and then it make me believe that it is possible. But I only realize that, let's say ChatGPT asked me to do follow step A, B, C, D, then I choose the dynamic switch for environment, and then only to realize that there is no such steps in dynamic switch swap.
Yeah.
I had to look at some of the documentation and realize that it is not possible.
Yeah. No, I actually don't know. I mean, that's a valid point. I think it's related to what I was saying is review and validate everything. So you can use it as an information to help you maybe look for the right information somewhere else, but you cannot use it as this is the way it has to be done. You cannot use it as 100% true. And I have the same when I'm using it, right? I'm using it and literally 50% of the process would not match with what I've heard, but the 50%, the other 50% actually good complementary information for you, right? So I think for now, I wouldn't be able, maybe someone else on the call can kind of chip in. I wouldn't be able to complement, especially technically, what is the best way for you to validate. Probably the Microsoft documentation is the next best thing. Maybe ChatGPT generate for you the steps that you do, and then you have to validate if it's not even possible. I don't know.
You're right. I think that so far, based on my experience, the point is you always have to cross-check it.
Yeah.
So, instead of relying on the ChatGPT, whatever AI generated suggestion for you, to make sure at least you cross-check with other source, then make a call.
Yeah, absolutely. Always cross-check for now, and yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question.
No.
Cool. Let's continue quickly. So if I continue the presentation, so another one as well is if I here there is more understanding. What I'm thinking is more understanding some of the diagram mock-ups. Maybe we can, from it's a bit from these ideas, right, where you generate some diagrams and then kind of you can fine-tune those diagrams. You can create some mock-ups of apps, and kind of it will generate for you again the skeleton of the apps with the tables and all the forms, all the fields and so forth. Then you can go in and fine-tune kind of the more advanced pieces. And yeah, I think very quickly, look, we'll be doing effectively new way of doing everything, like the whole thing, requirements analysis, designing solution, building apps. I think there will be a new way of looking at this completely, right? Seeing how the technology evolves, the requirement analysis. If you start with this one, I mean, your subject matter experts and your product owner only know what they know from their experience, right? Which is great. Like they have 30 years of experience, 20 years of experience in a specific industry on doing that role. But imagine if you can complement it with a tool that can literally give you kind of ideal requirements based on a specific industry, specific challenge, what they have seen and learned from so many other documentation, so many other people, right? So I think we'll have to look at, working differently, especially around the requirements analysis, validation, still involving, of course, our subject matter experts and product owners, but definitely I think complementing our knowledge from that AI knowledge readily available, basically, right? And then designing and building solution. What is happening now with Copilot, and it's still early stage, it's still in the infancy, but I think AI evolves so fast, and only 5 years from now, 5 years ago, right? If you look at 5 years ago, what we could do in Dynamics and the Power Platform versus now, it's so we have made so many steps in the technology and the way we're building apps. Can you imagine what will be in 5 years, right? So 5 or 10 years. So I think we'll have to, in my opinion, there will be a new way of doing everything. We'll have to be very open-minded in those new ideas and kind of embracing it and living with it, right? Because there will be quite a bit of change, in our space. Cool, Reed. That's what's really it for now. Open the floor in a sec for a few questions again or discussions. Thank you very much, Lynn, and all the organizers for making this possible. Thank you to DXC. Thank you for Explologic, Microsoft, and Fusion 5.
Thank you, Dani, for joining us and presenting.